Hello, hello. This is Danielle Ireland, and you are listening to Don't Cut Your Own Bangs. And today's guest is a very special guest. She has been a friend, a teacher, a healer for me for about the last 3 years or so, maybe even longer. Time is weird. We all know it. Her name is Angie Arkin. She is an internationally known psychic healer who has offered readings and teachings to individual clients and businesses around the world. She lives in North Carolina with her wife Abby and their 2 cats, Maggie and Sammy. She makes killer guacamole and loves to swim in the ocean and in waterfalls. And of course she does. And I will just say, flash forward to the end of the episode, her don't cut your own bang moment. I thought having a safari guide who leads ocean and land safaris would have given me like the ultimate dolphin wildlife don't cut your own bang moment, but I was proven wrong. And this is an incredible don't cut your own bang moment that does involve dolphins. You just got to stick around. You got to stay to the end and listen because it's a really, really good moment. It speaks to a lot of themes: trusting your intuition, letting nature be your guide, and just the beauty and magic of the unknown, unexplainable, gorgeous phenomenon that it is to exist on this planet. So we are talking to a psychic healer. And I just want to preface, before we dive into the episode, what is so beautiful about Angie specifically is that she talks about emotions and our feelings as the guide, as the way into self-exploration, healing, trusting yourself. We use words like vibes. We use words like intuition and vibration. She does talk about spiritual guides. So I'll say, wherever you find yourself on the religious or spiritual spectrum, this is a safe episode. This is a very palatable, very grounded conversation that is just another way into looking at ourselves, looking at an aspect of what it is to be alive, our spiritual self, our intuitive self. We have physical senses and we also have an intuitive sense. And there's lots of different ways we can talk about this and explore. And that's what excites me and what interests me in this community and here on this platform with Don't Cut Your Own Bangs. I want to talk about all the things. I want to explore all the things. Just want you to know there is a space for you here. And if you are curious, if you have ever thought of or considered, Angie's a really great place for you to start. But if you are a pro, you're like, girl, I've been doing Reiki. I've been doing all the things for all the times. Like, great. This is still an awesome conversation for you too. Welcome. Whether you've just come back from Costa Rica off retreat, wherever you find yourself in your spiritual journey, I'm really excited for you to meet Angie. Without further ado, get ready to sit back, relax, raise your vibes, and enjoy Angie Arkin. Angie Arkin, thank you so much for being here with the Don't Cut Your Own Bangs podcast. I'm really excited to introduce the community to you for a couple of reasons. I'm excited to share how I know you personally, and then also share your gift, your insight, and your wisdom with everyone so that we can benefit and all heal together. You're the first psychic I have ever had on Don't Cut Your Own Bangs. So this is like a big first. I just right off the bat, I'll say a subset of the clients that I've worked with in therapy over the years who have been curious about or have either explored in their own way or are wanting to develop their own intuitive sense and have sought either Reiki or alternative healing or energy readers. There's a woman named Laura Day who just came out with a book called The Prism, and she was on the Oprah podcast, and she preferred to be called a medium or an intuitive. There's different names, different labels, but I do have clients who are curious about this. And I would even venture to say are maybe cautious and a little closeted about their relationship with their spiritual self. That was a very long-winded way of saying, I'm glad you're here so that we can open this conversation up and we can learn from you and learn more about you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. What a pleasure. Really, thanks for having me here. And That was a sweet introduction, and I'm so happy to be here with any of your listeners, and it's exciting. And yes, I understand that kind of trepidation about about intuition and about not necessarily understanding how we all actually have our own intuition, and people like me who might call themselves mediums or channelers or intuitive healers or psychics, my opinion, and this has always been true for me, we're just connecting a call. I'm just connecting a call, right? So I always think of it like a UN interpreter. They've got somebody from Zimbabwe over here and somebody from France over here, and there's an interpreter going back and forth, and that's kind of my role. So my prayer is that I never want to know any more about someone than they want to know about themselves. So that's really helpful. And I find that is a really empowering piece for people to just be able to get to know themselves a little more, because our intuition is actually literally always talking to us. But it's like a radio station that we may or may not, or a frequency that we may or may not be used to tuning into. And I think as children, we're probably really not taught that either, a lot of us. Some of us are, and maybe that's changing now and with the little ones, like your children, I know you're like really encouraging that. And it's a muscle. Your intuition is a muscle, really. And so the more we listen to it, the stronger it gets. And that someone like me has just always been listening. So,
The thing that I have enjoyed, because I've been working with you for almost 3 years ish, and the thing that I have really come to value, and you already touched on this, is I think there is an idea probably rooted in experiences people have actually had, but that going to someone who is intuitive or reads energy, it's like they know more about you than you know about you. And I sometimes get that too as a therapist, especially if I'm at a social event or a dinner party and it comes up what I do. People are afraid that, oh, I'm just in my mental clipboard, I'm just
yeah,
diagnosing them and they're in my mind,
no.
which I'm not. But what I have always appreciated about working with you is one of the things I think you offer so generously is you help reinforce my trust with myself. I've not experienced with you this sense that you are imposing or bestowing a message from a place that I don't have access to, but instead, it's like you're only helping me go through a door that I'm willing to open. And so I think that is also maybe even as a gentle entry point for anyone listening who's maybe been curious about doing this type of work. This can also, even hearing this part of the conversation, may be a good gauge of what type of healing work am I looking for? What would I be looking for from a reader? What would help me feel more safe? What wouldn't? And I would say that's a big component of what's helped me feel really safe and keeps me coming back to seeing you, is that I trust myself, and anything we talk about helps me reinforce something. And sometimes it's a truth that I don't always want to hear, but it's never been a truth that I didn't
Yeah.
on some level know. I want to clarify, what is your preferred title if you move through the world and introduce yourself? What would you specifically
So
say you do?
it's evolved a little. I think it typically I'll say intuitive healer, but really what I'm evolving into to owning and saying is psychic channel, because that does incorporate some what I do. With the one-on-one sessions that I do, like with you and people, that's the mainstay of what I've been doing for the last, I didn't do the math, but I think it's been like over 20 years. That the mainstay of that is one-on-one individual sessions, and that's intuitive healer. I don't typically say psychic because it just scares people. And I don't do predictions.
Yeah.
I really try to stay away from that. The main reason for that is that when you're working with someone, it for me the main reason is it's very disempowering to tell them what's going to happen for them. Because again, I don't ever want to know more about you than you know about yourself. That would be weird, right? It's just not a good use of my ability. It'd be
That
weird.
would be
And
weird.
the other
Yeah.
thing is energy is always changing by the nanosecond. It's always moving. So when I look at something and someone says, is it good for me to go to Glastonbury in a month, for instance? I might, I will look at what I'm looking at is the energy as it is now. I think of it like it's like a train track, right? You're looking to see if that track is clear. As of this moment right now, the energies are clear for that. So the answer might be yes. Now we know that can shift and something out of the blue can happen. Somebody could take a fall and sprain their ankle and then they can't go, whatever. We hope that doesn't happen. But we don't know because it hasn't happened yet. So energy is always evolving. And so as I think psychics, we're looking at the energies, best case scenarios, energies as they are right now, moving towards that. If everything stays on this line, then it's going to be good. We, as I think many psychics, can usually see some of the influences that may come in to change that. So there is a lot that goes into it, into answering a future question. And there's also the past that comes into it.
I would also imagine too, there's less ego in trying to let a client know you know more about them than they do. And I could be projecting too, but I can remember in the early days of working as a therapist, I wanted so much for the client that I was sitting in front of to know that I was qualified to do what I was doing, that I would tell them
so
much beyond what they were ready for or that they even needed. And I think that was far more rooted in me trying to get over my own imposter syndrome in the moment than it was actually sitting with what the client needed or what they were even looking for, or helping them even define what they were looking for, because maybe they don't know, which often is the case, especially in the first couple sessions. In almost every first session, if I could amalgamate a script, it would sound very similar. I've been having a really hard time lately. I've been feeling a lot of stress, or there was like one inciting incident, a panic attack or a disruptive conversation with a partner. Really know what I'm looking for or what I want to talk about, but this is what I've been feeling, and I heard that I should talk to you. And I was wondering, when somebody seeks your help or seeks to work with you, what are some of the common things or themes that you hear in the beginning?
Often that they just feel stuck. They've tried different types of therapies, they've tried meditations or not. They just have an intuition, but they can't quite access it. Big life event shift. But I would say if I had to pick one, it would be that they just feel stuck in the same sort of pattern or loop thinking, the stories, and they just don't know how to move forward in a way. Like they know that there's better life for them. They know that they have it in them, and they just don't know how to access. And a lot of people feel like they need an energy clearing, and truthfully they do. I would say stuck feelings and knowing that they just need their energy field cleared, and they don't maybe have a reference point for how to do that on their own, and they want to learn.
I sometimes think of healing process not as like a linear or stair step progression, and more of a spiral. And for those of you who are just listening and maybe not watching on YouTube, so I was miming with my fingers stair steps up and then miming a circle that tightens into a spiral. And oftentimes, like, clients will have maybe started making nutritional choices or physical lifestyle choices before they start to even recognize mental and emotional, or they start making mental and emotional shifts, which leads them to making different physical choices. I do think there is a point where intuition and really looking at the voice in the head. So from a therapeutic perspective, I might talk about family systems and parts work, but almost every self-empowerment or self-actualization perspective or model does embrace and talk about intuition. And I've had clients come who have either worked with a healer, who are also they realized through a healing session, a memory came up and they wanted to find a better way to process it. So I guess what I'm saying is that any route to healing is in the right direction. It's however you get in. But then inevitably, I think it's natural for one to lead to another eventually, because kind of like decluttering your home, you get one really great, like you get a clean countertop, and now the dishes in the sink look really
totally
gunky.
True. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Any and all routes to healing. And that's why there's not just one way, right? Like there's not just therapy or not just psychics, but there's so many different ways to work with. As you said, it's so much about the stories in the mind and just the mind itself versus the intuitive, because your intuition doesn't ever come from your mind, right? Never the same voice.
Let's really open that up, because that was, I would say, that's one of the biggest you've really helped me understand in a deeper way, And I do think this is going to be really relevant conversation for people listening, that there are different conversations happening in the mind, and how to discern and know this is the voice that is moving me closer to authenticity, integrity, to the life I want to be living. And this is the naysaying voice that I learned or that I absorbed through culture or through family. They're like the voices that are in service of you and the voices that are not. And when all it sounds like is noise, sometimes it can be hard to see the woods through the trees. But I would love to hear from your perspective. How would one start to settle in and tap into that deeper knowing
Yeah,
beyond?
it's interesting in our culture right now. I'll just do a little preamble here because we have so much, particularly this year, there's a lot of influences from outer, from politics to world events to earth events. And we are being inundated and upgraded and updated on a psychic level. We can get into that later if you want. But what I would say, the voices right in the head, the stories, the way we speak to ourselves, that's a muscle that we've all as humans been working out since we were young. I'm almost 60, so that's been a long time of that voice having the microphone. The intuitive voice comes in with more of a felt sense, right? There's a deep knowingness that comes with your intuition, and there's a peace that comes with it. And like I said earlier, it's a muscle as well. So I like to give this example. You're in the grocery store and you're like, I deodorant, and I don't know which one to pick, right? The best way I find, right, is you can use your mind and you can say, I read an article about aluminum and this and that, and I don't know, but what about this one? It's on sale. And your mind is going to do all the things it does, which is 1,000 things a minute. Best way, take the two deodorants that you're looking at, for instance, put them to your heart. This can work for anything, really, but put it to your heart. One of them is going to feel better. You're going to have a felt sense of it. It will go beyond what the mind knows. It may even defy the mind and what it knows, but it will feel better to your heart. Your heart has your energy field, your body has biorhythms, right? And they sync up with certain vibrations, whether it's something as silly as a deodorant or a person. It could be a partner. It could be anything, really. We will sync up or we will not. Or one will sync up more fully and wholly in our bodies and feel more correct, more ease than the other. There's a lot of ways around this barn how to get to the intuition. But I think as humans, the felt sense is the easiest, quickest, because we are all feelers, right?
I've heard, for example, like Simon Sinek, who has, I think, the most viewed TED Talk of all time. He does the golden circle of how leaders lead, and they start with why. So much of his work and Brene Brown's work and Grant's work, they're all in a similar space, I would say, which is very research based, very cerebral, very intellectual, and where the Venn diagram for their expertise all overlap is the problems arise, the fractures happen when we ignore the feelings, when we try to override, explain away, pro-con list our way, try to sell ourselves on all the features and benefits. But when it betrays what we feel, my renewed mission with this podcast is if we can shrink that gap between what I feel and then what I know I need to do, the more that gap can shrink, then the more integrated and secure
And
we feel.
we have feeling. Everybody has feeling. We have a myriad of feelings within 5 minutes.
Yeah. We should have started with
Yeah.
that. Everybody has feelings.
Myself, we all have them. From 1 minute of anxiety to the next happiness to the next minute of depression. It's a constant, right? As I said, we're getting busier. We're doing more. We're actually being asked to update our vibrational frequencies. And so what happens is in those moments of different feelings, it's hard to find that felt sense of intuition, or it can be, especially if you haven't been, looking for it or understanding how to find it. So that idea of your intuition is always going to feel peaceful. The truth feels good. Even if it's a hard truth, there's a settling in your body and it just feels good. If it feels bad, it's not the truth.
Let me pause you there. That I have tingles in my legs. And that confirmed, I know that I have said this, but I think the best messages bear repeating. I have jokingly said that ahas are often followed by ah fuck. And
Yep.
because you're right, the
Yeah.
aha, it's just when the truth is recognized, something you've been searching for, or the truth of a relationship, the truth of a job, or the truth of a dinner plan maybe you want to cancel. But the truth, there is an opening. Elizabeth Gilbert says it feels like warm vanilla pudding. There's like a sweetness to it. The truth always feels good. And I have found that the truth in its highest expression is also kind. There's not a critical or a judgmental or a defensive stance in it. A lot of times, and this may be more with the clients that I'm working with and the nature that I work with them, but the truth is recognized, which can feel like fist pump. We did it. We figured it out. And then how do I integrate this into my life? Which is the beep.
Yeah.
And how do you help clients once they start carrying that forward?
It can be so many different ways, right? We feel an example could be, okay, so for instance, in a session, we might uncover or see that the marriage for someone or the relationship is over, right? Now, this isn't me saying, hey, guess what? Your marriage is over. This is me working with someone who already knows this, but hasn't known if that's the right answer. How could it be? How could they live that truth? So the work would be to kind of gently help them uncover their truth, right? To give that support, also to maybe psychically look at the other person and how the old part of this person has been tuning in. I believe that nothing ever really happens to us by accident. Like we're not, no, it can feel very victim time. I truly believe that we call in all the experiences that happen to us on some level. Our rational mind doesn't do it, but on some level we are, and that gets us into shadow work, right? But some part of us is calling in an experience. And so in this case scenario, some part of this person is calling in this experience of having lived with this person for whatever amount of time and seeing that that they're not growing together any longer. So the support would really be how to gain confidence in self-love and self-care and self-worth through that process of unraveling with another individual. For it, much of what you do with your clients, I'm sure, but also to really listen to themselves, to get that empowerment piece, because it's really all about autonomy and empowerment, right? Not power over anybody, but that autonomous feeling inside yourself that you actually are your own sovereign being, and you do understand what's happening for you, and you understand that you're co-creating this God, Great Spirit, the multiverse. You're co-creating it, and you're doing it for your own curriculum-based learning, right? So your curriculum might have been to learn this certain way, and now you wake up and realize, gosh, I just don't need to learn that way anymore. And that may have fallout, but when we understand that we're driving that bus to begin with, it becomes very empowering. And I think that is the support that is needed for that change.
What was coming up for me for the language that I use is I am not a victim of my life, that I am co-creating. And that doesn't mean that what's happening to me doesn't mean that I want all of that. But what that can open me up to or allow me to access is, and this is language I think you've given me too, which is when defensiveness comes up, what are you defending? What are you actually defending? If I want to defend my position as one who's been victimized, then why would I be protecting my smallness? Why would I be guarding the identity that I am small and without power? Because that isn't what I want if I really look at it. And so accessing curiosity and some self-compassion allows me to just take this idea and externalize it a little bit more. And you call it shadow work. So there's the part that we can see, just like the moon, and there's like the shadow side of the moon, which we're actually never able to see here from Earth. Looking at that doesn't make one more true than the other. It's just two parts of the same, but allowing them to exist gives me an opportunity to choose, like a sieve or like a filter. What do I want to keep and what do I want to let go?
Is this serving whatever this is, whether it's a situation or a feeling? And typically they'll say it's not serving me, but it's serving some part of you, or you wouldn't still have it. So when you can figure out what part of you is needing to re-engage in any kind of situation that's stuck or creating disharmony, you can really understand how you've been hooking in, and then you can unhook it. And I think that's also super empowering, right?
I have a great example that just lit up for me when you highlighted that. So I have a couple of clients who they have a tendency to run a few minutes late. And there's usually a sense of they come in a rush and a panic, and there's not like a grounded and oh, I'm sorry for running late, but like sorry, 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 sorry. Like they're coming in on the defense, on the attack, almost like they need to bulldoze through the conversation for the first couple minutes. What I'm imagining is they're building an emotional case. Don't be frustrated. Don't hold me accountable. Don't be upset. What I have been able to do, again, the more I've done my own work, the more I'm able to witness others and not feel activated or personalized or feel like slighted, where I definitely would have maybe year one or two. What is being late allowing you to do? Or that sense of urgency, that I'll say, that apology on the offense. How is that serving you? And this example came up because it was actually a recent session. And the very first, it's not like, I don't want to. Let's imagine there's a part of you that did. And again, that's me doing parts work. And you use that language almost exactly. And you might call it shadow work, but what part of you? And what we really started to unravel or became made clear was there was a more childlike part. I don't love throwing out superlatives like always and never. It's always something that
Almost
started
always, yeah,
early in childhood. Almost always, only 100%
Yeah.
of the time, every time. And that what would not taking responsibility for this part of it, what might that be? What might that look like? And it actually became a really profound session. We didn't get to any of the things that they thought they were coming in to talk about. But I think that's a great example of two different ways in to self-examination or self-exploration. I think because I wasn't truly bothered by it, the client was able to lower their defense enough to look at it, which is something you also modeled. There's no judgment. I've referred a couple people to you that I would say, like, you were their first psychic experience. And I've witnessed how tenderly and graciously you hold people who, in any stage of where they are, in your process, your work, anybody listening, wherever you fall on the line, if you're just hearing this for the first time, or you've often wondered, but you weren't really sure what to do, or you're like, Danielle, this is old news, take me to the next level, then make sure to check out the show notes.
If you've ever wanted to start a journaling practice but didn't know where to start, or if you've been journaling off and on your whole life, but you're like, I want to take this work deeper, I've got you covered. I've written a journal called Treasured, a journal for unearthing you. It's broken down into 7 key areas of your life, filled with stories, sentence stems, prompts, questions, and exercises, all rooted in the work that I do with actual clients in my therapy sessions. I have given these examples to clients in sessions as homework, and they come back with insights that allow us to do such incredible work. This is something you can do in the privacy of your own home, whether you're in therapy or not. It has context, it has guides, and hopefully some safety bumpers to help digging a little deeper feel possible, accessible, and safe. You don't have to do this alone, and there's also a guided, treasured meditation series that accompanies each section in the journal to help ease you into the processing state. So my hope is to help guide you into feeling more secure with the most important relationship in your life, the one between you and you. Hop on over to the show notes and grab your copy today. And now, back to the episode.
I've been working with a group of spirit guides. They're beings from other galaxies. Might sound strange, but there are 14 of them. They call themselves the Galactic Council. I've been working with them since I was a little girl. I just didn't know who I was talking to for a very long time. I just, whoever this was, were correct, and it was the truth. And when I started doing readings, they guide me through the readings. They help get information from people. They help clear energy. Their whole motivation is to be of service to updating the heart frequency to a higher frequency for everybody here on Earth. So if you do visit the website, and I hope you do, you'll see a lot about them on there. And I just wanted to give a brief little intro to what that is.
There's all different forms of medicine. There's all different ways that healing can look and feel. And I think the bottom line is to do what feels good to you. What's and truly, like, beyond that, not what sounds right, but to do what feels good, that your emotions are energy in motion, and they always have something for you to learn. And the more we are able to tap in, tune in, and trust that feeling sooner, and not even trust that we know what to do with it, but trust that it's telling us something, the better. This leads me to some language I actually got from your website that I want to ask you about. Our only way through is up, and the only way out is in. Tell me more about that, please.
When I wrote that, what I felt was the only way through this is to go inside. I think there's part of us as humans that look outside for those changes, right? Of course, like we're taught to do that as children. Watch mom and dad. Okay, this is how you act, right? Or not in some cases. But the outer view is not what is needed right now. We have to go in. If we want to see peace in the world, we have to create peace inside. If we want to see prosperity for all, we have to create an inner sort of acknowledgement of our own gratitude of what we have and the prosperity that is given to us, right? We have to connect with the earth. And the only way to truly change right now is to update our frequencies, our vibrations. What does that mean? Everything is a frequency, right? Anger is a frequency. Blame, shame, all of the lower vibrational emotions are frequencies. So they're discordant frequencies. And if we're living in those, we're not actually updating and doing the work that we're put here to do. We're actually being asked at this time, and I think we all came in to do this too, to update our frequencies to higher vibrations.
Something I want to really interject into that, and I hope it's okay that I do, is that wanting to look in and to create the environment internally that you want to see in the world is also, that is not turning a blind eye. That's not pretending. I work a lot with clients who are really wrestling with being informed and also being assaulted by the box that shows them bad news all the time. Where is that relationship within us of being a part of the world because we exist in this world? And then also, how can we move through it in a way that creates a better one? And what you just spoke to, I think, is a way to tap into that. And there's that naysaying voice, well, how dare I take the time to go on a walk in nature or meditate for 15 minutes or to seek my own healing when they're suffering? But that is all the more reason. Oh, yeah,
So
of course.
it is true. We've got unprecedented times right now of people suffering actually in the world. And we can give money. If you have money to give, great. If you have time and effort to offer to anything, even local, right? Like food banks, whatever, please, if you feel called, go do that. But also, if you just have the time you have, the best thing you can do is create a peaceful inner environment, because we're not separate. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people don't understand. As beings on this earth, we are not separate from each other. We look different. I look different than you do, right? We have different lives. But as individual souls, we're not separate. Just like the trees aren't separate from one another. When a tree dies, it doesn't feel dead because it passed on its information through its root systems to the other trees, and it exists still. It's a hard concept, I think, for a lot of people to wrap their minds around. But if we look at it like we're not separate, if you're creating inner peace, gratitude, love, and then sending that out vibratorily, like as a vibration from your heart, you're actually offering the people suffering more than you could ever realize. Yeah.
Well, to speak to the trees and the vibration, hearing what you just said, it made me think of something I've seen Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about, and also David Attenborough. I think when science and spirit intersect,
It's okay.
it just amplifies. It's like magic. So this concept of vibration, David Attenborough has this video, and I would encourage anybody to find it because it's just seeing it yourself versus hearing it secondhand. But for the sake of the podcast, I'll continue to talk about it. That he talks about there's the positive and negative charge in a flower that has pollen that attracts the bee. So the bee has a charge. The flower has a charge. The bee isn't smelling the pollen, but the bee is attracted to the charge. And when the bee with its charge and the flower with its opposite charge meet, it's neutral because they can actually monitor the frequency. Thinking about how butterflies migrate, how birds migrate, how do they know? There is a sense and a tone and an energy. I like highlighting that as much for myself as for anybody listening, that the concept or the conversation of vibration might be dismissed, if not also seen, that it is true.
We can prove it. Yeah.
It's true. When you were talking about the trees and the passing along of it, Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't talk about necessarily passing along information. That is a special spice that I've learned from you that I didn't get from him. But he talked about nutrients and life-giving energy, that because the root systems are connected, that they are passing energy and nutrients to the base of the tree, even if the tree's been cut down. And that tree stump, it's alive in its own way, and it's still sharing energy and nutrients. It's still its own life force. I just get really excited when things overlap in that way. There was also another piece of language that I think we already touched on, but I just want to make sure that point is being driven home, that we are being called to embody the change we wish to see in the world. And
probably the worst thing we can do right now, and this is no judgment because we're human, we all do it from time to time, but the worst thing we do right now is blame each other. Yeah, because if you hurt your big toe, the rest of your body doesn't blame the big toe for being hurt or sick. It sends healing energy to it. But I think as people, we see somebody doing something that we disagree with and we blame them. We're blaming ourselves because we're not separate. We're only as healthy as the sickest part of our society. Right? So we look at the homeless people on the street, and they're taking one for the team. They're really showing us our sick. Why doesn't everybody have a home with clean water, at least a roof over your head and some food? We could do that. And I'm not saying we're wrong for not doing it, but we're living through a time where we're starting to wake up to that. And we get to applaud that. Good. We're courageous enough to see, and we're looking. So the misstep would be blame. And where to go with that would be into this heart-centered space. And it goes back to what you were talking about. It is hard to look at suffering. I feel like a lot of times we will say internally, could you please stop suffering because your suffering is causing me to suffer? And we get mad. Quit it.
The collective codependence. Could you feel better so I could feel free? Thank you.
Stop it with all the suffering. The idea, nutrients to one another, whether it's, like we said, whether you have money to give, or you have time to give, or if you just have energy to give, if you just have energy from your heart. But you have to start with yourself. And that's this idea of like really, really applauding yourself. For being alive at this time. This is big doings right now. This is a big time. So we all have a lot of courage to come down here and to be in this massive shift that's happening, to give ourselves grace. I'm trying to change the way I say it's a lot, because I feel like it's got a negative to it. So I'm trying to change it to I have an array of opportunities.
That's great. I have used similar language. If I haven't shifted a pattern in a relationship dynamic and it comes up again and then I feel annoyed or frustrated by it, my first impulse is to point the finger. Yeah. That's the first impulse. What I try to get to more quickly is thank you for giving me another opportunity to handle this differently. Thank you for showing me another opportunity I have to learn. And I wanted to go back to little Angie and ask you about those first psychic moments, but I also want to be mindful of your time. So maybe what this means is there will be a part 2 and a follow-up conversation. Like, where did little Angie first step into what she is now doing? But I'll just put that out there and say that we're going to just set the intention that can be a part 2 conversation that we have. But what I would love to wind into is your don't cut your own bang moment. Because I bet you have some real fun ones.
I had so much trouble with this because I was telling Danielle before we started. Okay, so being a psychic, right? Like you kind of get the memo a little early about stuff. And then also I'm a Capricorn, so I'm super cautious and steady Eddie, right? But I found one, and it speaks to the exuberance of the inner child, right? So it might have been 1999. I think it was like around then. I was living in Hawaii on the Big Island, and I would swim out with the dolphins every morning that they were there like 20 days out of every month. And often it would be, I'm a swimmer, so it would be like a mile or half a mile out, half a mile back. But you can swim with them. It's important when you swim with dolphins, you use your arms to swim out, but when you get near them, you put your arms by your side because it frightens them, all the splashing and stuff. And these are spinner dolphins, so they're not quite the same as bottlenose that we have here. They're a little bit shyer, but they'll stay 5 feet away. But the visibility is so good that you feel like you're just right there, and it's so exciting to be near dolphins. And so this was a practice I had most every morning, and this was Thanksgiving Day. I'll never forget that. And the water was really choppy. It was super duper churned up. It wasn't the most hospitable day for the ocean, but I saw the dolphins from the shore, and so I hopped in, swam out to where they were, had my arms by my side, had my little snorkel, and was swimming around talking to them, and didn't really know much about what was happening. All of a sudden I see myself, they turned me, and I was facing the shoreline again, and they were starting to swim off. And so I swam back after them. I was like, that must have been a mistake. So I swam back after them, and we go out, we make a wide arc again. I don't realize it, and pretty soon I'm facing the shore again. So this happened like 3 or 4 times where I'm like, wait a minute, that must be a mistake. So I swam back after them. Last time it happened, they wide arc and they guide me back to the shore, and then they take off really fast. And I'm like, man, I'll miss them. So I got out and I'm drying off, and somebody comes up and was like, did you see that shark that was out there? It was like a big, deep Pacific Ocean shark in the middle of the bay. And they were like protecting me from it. So that don't cut your own bangs moment was, well, when dolphins bring you back to shore, you listen to them. Yeah.
I love that it happened 3 or 4 different
it.
times. They're like, no, little human, just, can you go back in onto the land? Go back. Oh, and did you ever find out what the shark was? Like a tiger shark? Or did you ever find out?
I saw it close enough, but you could see the girth of it in the fin, and there might have been more than one, actually. And they did have sharks in the bay sometimes, so it wasn't a surprise, but it was a surprise that it was that close in. Yeah. Good learning.
Wow.
Moment.
I've had the privilege of having a shark diver. He leads land and ocean safaris on the podcast. And for anybody who I would say is spiritually or psychically curious, I would encourage them to listen to that episode too. I interviewed, his name is Eli Martinez, but people who regularly interact with nature, even if they consider themselves cerebral, logical, concrete type thinker, you spend enough time in nature and you have experiences like what you're describing. And he has a catalog of nature and shark. He swims with anacondas and crocs, and he was just in Alaska with brown bears. It's so easy to maybe have doubts or be circumspect or a little reserved when you live in a house with 4 walls and artificial light. If you want to remember that little part of you, or if you're curious about accessing that part of you, the more time you can spend outside, that's a great way to start too. And what a great don't cut your own bang moment. The dolphins saved you from a shark.
They did.
That's amazing. Well, Angie, thank you so much for your time and your energy and for sharing just a small part of what you do and what you offer. And for anybody that's listening that hasn't already, you can hop over to the show notes as soon as you're done listening, and you can follow her on social media and you can check out her website. She has a membership, or you can schedule a session with her. There's lots of different ways that you can continue the conversation beyond today. But thank you for being here.
What a pleasure. And you make it so easy. It's just fun to chat when you're so well informed. Let's do it anytime you want. It's exciting.
When I set out to write a book, I only knew two things. One was I wanted to make big feelings feel less scary and more approachable. And I wanted to bring some lightness to the feelings themselves. What I know to be true as a therapist is that emotions are energy in motion. They have information to tell you to inform the next right step to take. And self-doubt, fear, anxiety live in that space between knowing and not knowing. The second thing I knew was that I wanted to have fun in the process of making this thing. The result is this: Wrestling of Walrus for Little People with Big Feelings, beautifully illustrated children's book that has a glossary at the end for some of the bigger feeling words. What this story does in a light and loving way is create context for those relationships you can't change, those people that you wish would treat you different, the things in life that we cannot control and yet we face that are hard. This book, it's a conversation starter for any littles in your life who want to create more safety and love and patience for some of those experiences. So hop on over to the show notes. You can pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or my website. I hope that you do, because I believe in this little book. I freaking love this little book, and I cannot wait to hear your experience with it. Thanks so much for listening, and back to the episode. Thank you so much for joining me in this week's episode of Don't Cut Your Own Bangs. I hope you enjoyed listening, because I thoroughly enjoy making it every single time. It is such a delight. What I want to invite is ask questions. Ask questions. You can send me an email at Danielle@DanielleIreland.com. And if you forget any of that, the link in the show notes has my website, all the different ways you can connect with me. But you can also email me directly. Just put in the subject line bangs so that I know, oh, this is a podcast related question. But if you have a question for Angie, if you have a question for me, if you have a question from something you heard in a previous podcast, but you just didn't think I really meant it when I said, hey, ask me a question, there's no expiration date. It doesn't matter how much time has passed since the time you thought of a question or had something you wanted to say. Hey, I was curious about this part of the podcast. Or maybe it's, hey, I listened to this podcast and I really wanted you to go deeper in this part. I've been struggling with X, Y, Z, or I'm curious about X, Y, and Z with my own emotional and mental wellness. Can you dive into that and build an episode around it? My answer will be yes. In some shape or form, I'll find a way to address your question, because the best things in life are shared. And so I want to build this community with you and alongside you. With that in mind, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your engagement with it there actually helps the podcast grow, helps more people find it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for investing this time into yourself. I hope that you enjoyed Angie, and I hope that you continue to have an incredible day.